were here last month, you talked about Panchsheel, reviving Panchsheel. And I know that Panchsheel is talked about in the context of India and China and ASEAN, but the larger point it makes is peaceful coexistence. Do you think peaceful coexistence is still possible in a world where wars are erupting all the time? Today, the biggest headline is Pakistan attacking Afghanistan.
Well, I think the world is going through a very difficult transition to multipolarity. But there's a good chance that in our part of the world, we can have peace and stability for at least another generation. The key here is relations between India and China. If India and China has reasonable relations, then we in Southeast Asia will be secure. And together, we are more than half the world's population, the faster growing half. There's no danger that India and China will be too close, but there's no need for them to become enemies. And I'm glad to see the way relations are improving.
But after a lot of trouble as well, and the outstanding issues still remain, including a disputed border and the trade imbalance. You've been an advocate of India and China having a peaceful coexistence as well, being good neighbors, but that's a two-way street, wouldn't you say?
Well, on trade matters, I think both sides can negotiate. The key is the politics and the border. I think the politics will calm down, partly because it is quite clear that India's relations with America is an adult relationship. There is no alliance against China. The Chinese were very suspicious initially, but now they know that India is acting on its own behalf. And India went through a very critical test in the last few months when America piled on pressure. India did not buckle. And because it did not buckle, so its standing in the world has gone up. And it has made some tough decisions to have a free trade arrangement with Europe, to undertake further internal reforms, and also now to move towards a situation where Indian talent, because of the difficulty in getting American visas, is retained within India. And you could sense now in this country a new spirit, a certain self-sustaining virtuous circle. I've been watching India for a very long time. Ever since Narasimha Rao introduced this whole reform program. And I was involved in negotiating the free trade agreement with the Vajpayee government. And for 10 years, I was involved in reviving Nalanda University. So I've seen different aspects of India. And in the last few years, you can sense everything coming together. And the country now set on a certain course of development. I feel optimistic for India.
Thank you. The latest GDP numbers are out today, 7.8% growth, so I'm sure a lot of people share your optimism. But are you essentially crediting Donald Trump for the thaw between India and China? Because beware, he might take credit for it and add it to the list of countries where he's brought around a ceasefire.
No, Trump, he's a remarkable man. I don't think he's a reason for historical change. But he's accelerating the changes that have long been underway. Every morning when we wake up, we look at our mobile phone wondering what he has said the night before. And sometimes we admire him for what he does, sometimes we are shocked, sometimes we are repulsed. But he's like someone hammering a structure, you know. The parts which are weak will crumble. The parts which are strong stay strong. So Trump is fast-forwarding the future. That's his role in history. Our strategy should be to anticipate the future and get into a good position. Between India and Singapore, our relations go back a very long time to the British East India Empire, when the Raj controlled Singapore from Calcutta. So we follow developments in India very closely. I remember Lee Kuan Yew in the initial years was a bit skeptical. But it was clear that little by little, sometimes via twists and turns, India is now on the trajectory of self-sustaining development. And that is good for Asia, that is good for Singapore, it is good for the world.
Right. You mentioned Trump's posts. I think it's the best time to be a journalist because there's never a dull day. But I wonder what it's like for diplomats and political leaders. You left that life in 2011, just as social media was making its way into our lives in a very big way. What's your advice for diplomats and leaders today when policy decisions and conversations are all conducted in full public glare and there is little room for behind-the-scenes conversations?
No, we can't just be performing for the media, but the media is very important. And the social media has become extremely important. Trump, in a sense, understood this because he was in the media business before and he knew how to make use of Twitter. He knows how to manipulate an audience, to bring them up, to bring them down, to excite them, to reduce them. He's a master in this. But in politics, if we don't have a core, and we are just adjusting to the winds of change and public opinion, we will fail. The leaders who succeed are those with a core. And that core, at its heart, is a moral core, to do the right things for our country and by our people. That's very important. Otherwise, we are just tacticians.
That's a very, very important point that you've made. But given the way our world is evolving and the great power rivalry and the open confrontation, how do countries like India, which do not want to be part of the camp politics, how do countries like Singapore navigate this strategic competition, say, between a US and China, both of which are important partners?
Well, India is in a good position. India is not a threat to any of the major powers. And therefore, everyone wants good relations with India, I think including China. So India has the privilege of being able to sit on every table and enjoy the best from every table. I like the amuse bouche here, the soup there, the dessert at the back.
And Russian oil.
And that is India's position. Now, India has difficult relations with its neighbors. And that's partly because of the way the subcontinent was broken up after independence. But with India growing year by year, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, all your neighbors will want to have good relations with you because you will be an important source of their own well-being. You look at China. China today, in some ways, owes all its neighbors because all of them want the investments, the trade opportunities. They don't want to get too close to China. They don't want China to dominate their lives. But because of this, they manage their relations with China. And China makes use of this economic position for statecraft. I think in 10, 15 years' time, India will be the same position in the subcontinent. All the countries around you will want to have good relations with you because it is advantageous to them.
And I would say one of the bigger wins for India in the last decade has been the digital public infrastructure. And that's where Singapore has led in a lot of ways. What can the world learn from the smart nation, Singapore smart nation approach, and how can other countries implement it? What are your tips for them at a time when technology is evolving very, very fast?
No, we have to keep up with technology. I remember when I first came on an official visit to India in 1992, 93. India was beginning its IT revolution. And we worked together to establish, together with Tatas, the IT park in Bangalore, which has been very successful. And since then, India has become an IT power in the world. AI is a huge challenge because if you don't swim with it, you will be drowned by it. And there's no guarantee that you can swim successfully because the US is moving very fast, China is moving very fast. So I think it is right that India has decided to give AI its full attention. And you had a very successful convention here in the same center a few weeks ago. You have identified the problems, the opportunities, but moving with this technology, which is a revolution, requires the mobilization of the whole people. It is not just what a few computer scientists can do. It is how to make use of AI in every sector of the economy and to manage the social divisions which AI will create in society. The concentration of power, of wealth, millions of people losing their jobs and feeling very unhappy. There will be a lot of reaction. So how India manages this will determine whether it swims successfully this new tide.
I know we're supposed to talk about ASEAN, but since we are on the subject of AI and you're a former military man, and we are looking at a standoff between the Pentagon and Anthropic on the use of AI in warfare, does it bother you that we may create something that is so powerful that we lose control of it?
Oh, this should be our greatest worry. That every new technology that arrives presents opportunities for good and for evil. And usually evil before good, because that new technology can be used to kill, to manipulate, to take advantage of the ignorant. And because of this, we are seeing now a concentration of power, of influence in the world in very few hands. In a sense, when China decided to make large language models open source, now they did it for themselves, but in doing it for themselves, they have added a public good to others, including Singapore, and probably to India too. But it is a huge challenge, and we have to be very mindful of the harm AI can do to human society. I worry a lot about it.
If you look at Asia over the next 20 years, what are the changes or shifts that the world should be prepared for, according to you?
I think if we watch the league table, there'll be great changes, because some societies can respond to the new technologies better than others. They can exploit it, they can manage the problems. In every society, the Gini coefficient is worsening. New social divisions are growing. And we are not mindful of them if we don't identify the challenges. By the time they become big, we'll not. I think India stands a good chance because you embarked on IT many years ago, and you have a natural talent for it. And some have become very wealthy because of it. But you have to be careful that others who are left behind are looked after. I remember my old friend Chandrababu Naidu. He was in Andhra Pradesh. He was very gung-ho on IT. Then in one election, he was undone because the rural countryside did not keep up with him and they didn't like what they saw. He has learned that lesson subsequently. But the whole of India must respond holistically and not just in pockets. Then it becomes dangerous. And it applies as much to Singapore and to other countries.
Yeah, we are the size of the subcontinent. It will take much longer, I think. But point well made. On the point of ASEAN, India has been strengthening ties with ASEAN countries through trade pacts and Indo-Pacific strategy. And only now, after years of hesitation, weighed in on issues in the South China Sea as well. What role do you see India playing in this region going forward?
All of us in India want India to play a bigger role in Southeast Asia. But sometimes we feel that India, because it's got other concerns, do not give us the attention we feel is due to us. You know, Professor Wang Gangwu, a great scholar, he once said, Singapore is where the mandalas of India and China overlap. The name Singapore is a Sanskrit name and needs no explanation to any Indian. In every country of Southeast Asia, there are aspects of India and China in different proportions. The more our account with China grows, the more we want our account with India to grow. We don't want our account in China to diminish because there's too much going there. But we want our account with India to grow. So when India grows, we feel more comfortable. And when our relations with India improves, we feel more balanced. And this is a big opportunity for India. And if we're able to work together, India, China, Southeast Asia, together, we will find a way forward, not just for ourselves, but for the whole world. And I would say that if we look down the century, say by 2050, China will be the world's biggest economy. India, either the third or the second. But not long after that, India will be at least be the world's second biggest economy. So our collective weight will matter the most in the world, and therefore decide crucial issues of war and peace, not just in our region, but in all parts of the world.
Right. Mr. Georgiou, thank you very much for your optimism and your confidence in India. I think that's a wonderful note to wrap on. Lots to talk about, but we are out of time. Big round of applause for a friend of India and someone who is a sane voice clearly in a very loud and chaotic world. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience.
Thank you, Palki. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yo and Palki. आप सबको फिर से नमस्ते। कोई आपको नमस्ते कहे तो आप क्या करते हैं? हाँ, करिए, दिल से बोलिए। Have you had a good time? Day 1 so far? अरे, ये exchange थोड़ा has to become a little better. Have you had a good time so far? Okay, let me ask you, which was your best session for the day so far? Kangana, okay. Yami, कंगना, यामी, मुझे लग रहा है सब 5 बजे के बाद आके बैठे हैं यहां पे। सुनील आंबेकर जी, अच्छा, तो कोई दिन में भी था यहां? एनीबॉडी एल्स? साइना, हाँ, तो आप सुबह भी थी मैम, गुड। अनिल कपूर जी, फिर 5:30 बजे के बाद, 6 बजे के बाद। द बेस्ट इज येट टू कम, ये कोई पॉलिटिकल कॉर्नर तो नहीं है ना? आप सबको फिर से नमस्ते। देखिए, 7:37 हो रहे हैं। अब से 23